All right, good afternoon. For tonight's homework, make sure you go straight to your journal first and go to the page that we started in class. The one was labeled ratios, and you're going to write on that page. You're going to start right there with what we did in class. Okay, very first thing, I want the definition of a ratio. It is a comparison of two quantities. So if I say the ratio of boys to girls is 5 to 7, that would mean there are 5 boys to every 7 girls. But I could also turn that around and say girls to boys would be 7 to 5. Okay? So just make for sure we understand that there are different ways to spin this around. It's comparing two different things. You can compare lots of different things. We'll make some examples in a second. All right, next, on your notes, make for sure you write down there are 3 ways to write a ratio. Okay, so if there are 5 dogs and 7 cats at the pet store, the ratio of dogs to cats can be written as 5 to 7. But you can write it in 3 different ways. Okay, 5 dogs, 7 cats. So 5 has to go first every time. 5 to 7, this is 5 to 7, this is 5 to 7. Even though they look a little backwards here. Okay? All right. Now, use what you wrote in class today. The ratio of boys to girls in your class. The ratio of girls to boys in your class. The ratio of boys to total students in your class. And the ratio of girls to total students. You're going to fill these in the blank below your video in just a second. So as you're writing these down in your journal, you're also going to be submitting them in your video for me. And your Go Formative. Okay. Now, we're going to talk about a couple of things. The first one here is a part-to-part relationship. So part-to-part would be what part of the class is boys and what part of the class is girls. Okay, those two are part-to-part. So you can go back right here where you wrote these, and you can just show that these top 2 were part-to-part. We're comparing 2 different parts of the same whole. Okay, part-to-part. But the bottom 2 were part-to-whole ratios. So the part of the class that's boys or part of the class that's girls compared to your total class. There are lots of different ones that you can use. And we'll do some examples in just a minute, okay? All right. So now we're going to write some ratios. Okay. You're going to have 15 of them. You're going to list them. It's going to be an open box on your paper. You're going to number, 1. You would say ratio of, I don't know, eyes to fingers. Okay, ratio of eyes to fingers. Anywhere you look, any people, typically it's going to be 2 to 10. So I want you to label it and give me the ratio. Okay, and you could say the ratio of, at my house, it would be reptiles to mammals. It's pretty easy. Oh my goodness, so many reptiles though. I have 2 mammals. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 to 2. 14 reptiles to 2 mammals. So you can go there and write these any way you want. You can write them as a colon, or you can write it as 2 to 10, or you can write it as 2 to 10. Remember, this is not a fraction. It's not saying there are 2 eyes out of every 10 fingers. It's not out of, okay? It's not part to whole. Now, you have 15 that are part to part that you're writing and 5 that are part to whole. You're going to list them, okay? You're going to do all 15 of them here. You're going to work, you can get help with this. You can get help with your neighbors, from people at home. You can do ceiling tiles to lights, or windows to doors in your house. You can do anything you want. Boys to girls in your house, people to pets, anything you like, okay? All right, the very last part here is how do you tell if 2 ratios are equivalent, just like fractions. 1 is the scale factor. I can multiply the top and the bottom by the same number. So my scale factor here would be a 5. 2 times 5 is 10, and 3 times 5 is 15. If I can multiply the top and the bottom by the same thing, they're equivalent. Or I can also use cross products. Sometimes these are equivalent even if this doesn't work, because it may be multiplying by like 2.5 or something. Okay, the next one here, cross products, means I can multiply at an angle, and if they're equivalent, if the products here are equivalent, then my answers are equivalent. So 3 times 10 is 30, and 2 times 15 is 30, and now these are equivalent because these 2 numbers are equivalent, okay? So you're going to write down all these notes and then put this in your video, in the questions that I ask below, okay? Have a great night.